In question 25, we're told that a woman has a recessive genetic condition, but that neither of her parents has the condition. We're then given 5 scenarios A through E, and we're asked which of the following could not be true. So before we tackle each of these scenarios and how they relate to our situation here, let's first think about what we're told and what the genotypes, i.e. which alleles, are at play here. So if a woman has a recessive genetic condition, we know that recessive conditions are only expressed when they're homozygous. So this woman's genotype must be homozygous recessive, which I've represented with lowercase r. And we're told that neither of her parents has the condition. However, she, being their daughter, must have received these alleles from her parents. So even though her parents don't have the condition, they must be carriers of the recessive allele, since one allele comes from each parent. So both parents must be heterozygotes, so they must have one dominant allele, capital R, and one lowercase r, which represents the recessive allele. Because they have this dominant allele, the uppercase R, that means that they will not express the condition. Okay, now that we know that, let's move on to our 5 scenarios. A, both parents are heterozygous for this gene. Well, this could be true. In fact, it's the most likely situation given the information we're given. Obviously, we can't account for things like mutation, which could be at play here. Anyway, moving on to scenario B, we have one maternal grandparent and one paternal grandparent having the condition. Now, is this possible? Well, that would mean that the maternal grandparent would have to be homozygous recessive, and the same goes for the paternal grandparent, since they have the condition, and in order to express the condition, you must be homozygous recessive, as is the case with the woman. Now, could this lead to them producing the parents, who we know are both heterozygotes? Well, given that it's a maternal grandparent and a paternal grandparent, they could have had a child with someone who had a dominant allele, which the parents could have inherited, therefore leading to a heterozygote outcome. So that could be true. Moving on to C, one maternal grandparent and one paternal grandparent are heterozygous for the gene. Well, again, if they're heterozygotes, they must have this genotype, uppercase R, lowercase r. Now, could heterozygotes produce heterozygotes in a cross? Well, yes, we can just do a simple Punnett square, and we can see that heterozygotes could be the outcome there. Moving on to D, all her grandparents were carriers of the recessive allele. So that could be true. For example, if all of her grandparents were heterozygotes, well, we know that a heterozygote cross can produce the heterozygote parents, as I said earlier, so that's also possible. Moving on to E, both parents are homozygous, and a mutation occurred in the DNA of a gamete from one of her parents. Now, if both parents were homozygous, well, that would mean that they have the condition. And we know in the question that neither of the parents has the condition. So this must be wrong, because both parents can't be homozygous. Even if there were to be a mutation in the DNA of a gamete, that wouldn't affect the genotype and therefore the phenotype of the parents themselves, who we know don't have the condition. So it's E that could not be true. I've been very careful with my ticks and my crosses to identify which could be true and which could not be true because of the wording of the question being quite easy to trip you up. So therefore, I can say my answer is option E, as the only one of these scenarios that could not be true.